Israel's effective military strikes have heightened global tensions in the Middle East over the previous 48 hours. Yesterday, Israel launched simultaneous and massive military strikes in Iran, Iraq, and Syria. These strikes were especially impactful in the Iranian city of Isfahan. Iran's attacks against Israel, followed by Israeli Air Force drone strikes on Iran's Isfahan military airbase, ratcheted up the tension. Israeli strikes also targeted pro-Iranian armed groups in Iraq and Syria, directing attention to these areas. The Israeli operation has generated major movement in the region's geography, resulting in the withdrawal of Iran's proxy organizations to safer locations. Today, Israeli airplanes targeted Iranian-backed militia sites in Iraq and Syria. These strikes targeted pro-Iranian militia facilities throughout Iraq, with the goal of reducing Iran's military influence in the region. Israel's highly proficient F-35 fighter aircraft, in particular, targeted the primary command center of Iran's proxies in Iraq, capping out the week after an attack on Iran's nuclear facilities' air defenses on Friday morning. The Hashd al-Shaabi, Iran's proxy in Iraq, are the country's largest satellite after Hezbollah, with over 100,000 members. At this point, we'll go into greater detail on the war's turning points, but we're wondering about your current ideas. Please leave your remarks for us and our valued viewers. The attack was Iran's second big setback after Israel entirely removed the top leadership of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards branch in Syria earlier this month. It is worth noting that two bombing salvos from F-35 fighter aircraft struck the Hashd al-Shaabi administrative buildings, the largest arsenals at the Kalso military facility, and tank hangars stocked with massive ammunition. Now, following all of the eye-catching details of the three F-35 fighter jets rumbling over Iranian proxies, we will examine the recent 48 hours in the Middle East and the current hot scenario of multifarious attacks on Iran and its proxies. The first widely anticipated event following Israel's recent attacks in Iran, Iraq, and Syria occurred on Saturday, again from Iraqi territory. Israeli airplanes recently targeted operational bases of Iranian-backed militias in Iraq. A massive explosion occurred at a military site in Iraq. According to an Air Defense Command report, the incident occurred at the Kalso military camp near Alexandria, about 50 kilometers from Baghdad, and technological tests and radar detection revealed that no drones or fighter jets were in Babylonian airspace prior to or during the explosion. However, Iraqi media said that the strike was carried out by many drones targeting the militia military base. Following contradictory accounts, local sources revealed that the attack was carried out by three F-35s. According to the most recent data, the F-35 fighter jets unleashed two distinct waves of bombing throughout the operation.
Making a piggy bank so I can be inspired to save. Start with BMO for a more solid way to save. We give you a cash reward every month to keep you motivated.
What's your news?
I thought it was kind of obvious.
Following the bombardment, a fire broke out in the surrounding region. According to recordings and images from the attack site, a big explosion was followed by a fire in the neighboring woodland, which subsequently spread. Following the release of the video on social media, Iraqi sources said that the bombardment south of Baghdad also targeted an Iranian paramilitary weapons storage. According to initial accounts, the operation targeted Hashd al-Shaabi's headquarters, a tank hangar, and the group's primary munitions storage. The attack killed one security officer, including members of Iranian-backed organizations, and injured 8 others. Iraqi federal police and military personnel were also stationed in the region. It is unclear whether Iraqi forces were among the injured. However, it was alleged that the person slain in the event belonged to a pro-Iranian armed group. According to a statement from the Iraqi Mobilization Forces, Chief of the General Staff Abdulaziz al-Mohammed Awi visited the region and reviewed the results of the investigative committees at the attack site. The Iraqi government also stated that it was examining the issue. Iraq's Prime Minister Mohammed Sheikh al-Sudani is now in the United States. However, he made it clear that the required investigations and procedures would be performed upon his return. On Saturday, shortly after the announcement, Hashd al-Shaabi Chief of Staff Abu Fadak al-Mohammed Awi conducted an inspection of the base. Following the inspection, Iraqi soldiers allegedly launched a counterattack in the area. The Iraqi Resistance Organization, which represents Iraqi armed forces opposed to the United States and Israel, claimed credit for the retaliation attack. Earlier on Saturday, armed elements identified as the Iraqi Resistance Organization published a video of a drone flying over the area, claiming that Israel had bombed a major target in the port city of Eilat, citing suspicions of a reprisal. No authority has publicly verified that Israel was behind the attack in Iraq. However, pro-Iranian factions claim to have spotted 35 warplanes in the sky during the attack. Iraqi security sources reported that hundreds of American and Israeli jets flew over Iraq. Following these allegations, a U.S. official stated that there was no U.S. military presence in Iraq. Representatives of armed organizations have attempted to back up their claims by claiming that Camp Kalsu was under U.S. authority during the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq before being handed to the Ministry of Defense in 2011. The camp has an ammunition stockpile and a warehouse for tanks and other weapons. The Iraqi armed organization believes Israel used U.S. intelligence to target this stockpile. This group is an Iranian-backed militia with about 100,000 armed members. Following the defeat of Daesh in Iraq, the militia became an official government-funded force overseen by the Iraqi Interior Ministry. The new official force began accumulating weapons and drones and operating more freely in Syria, endangering U.S. and Israeli troops. As a result, U.S. troops in Iraq are continuously operating from local bases to confront pro-Iranian armed groups known as Iraqi militias. Despite this mission, no evidence suggests that U.S. personnel supported or were engaged in the recent raid on an Iraqi base. There is also no evidence that Israel was involved in the attack on Iraq. However, local media sources in Iraq think Israel carried out the bombing as part of a larger campaign against Iran. Local sources even say that Israel received intelligence assistance from the United States during the raid. There has been no statement from Israel claiming credit for the strike on Iraq's Hasht al-Shabi facility. If Israel takes credit for the current attack on the Hasht al-Shabi base in Iraq, it will most likely be regarded as a continuation of its punitive actions against Iran. By utilizing this strategy, the Iranian leadership might use the attacks in Iraq as leverage against Israel. For the time being, Tehran has not taken such action against Israel, but you know how quickly things can change in the future. This is why the Israeli army must remain on constant alert, particularly in Iraq and Syria. The United States already has bases and intelligence organizations in each country. Israel's leverage against Iran is bolstered by the U.S. willingness to fight any Iranian proxy operation in Iraq or Syria. Although pro-Iranian armed organizations hope to change the situation in the area, it is apparent that Tehran is increasingly losing influence in both Iraq and Syria. Simultaneously, Israeli attacks against Hasht al-Shabi in Iraq and Hezbollah in Lebanon will have important geopolitical and strategic ramifications for regional tensions. The Israeli operations against Iranian-backed proxy organizations will have far-reaching consequences for Israeli-Iranian ties and regional security dynamics. Israeli assaults against Iranian proxy groups strengthen the goal of reducing Iran's regional influence. This policy seeks to decrease Iran's influence in Lebanon and Iraq, undermining the military capabilities of Iranian-backed militias in those countries. However, such acts may result in mutual attacks and reprisals, worsening regional instability. An open Israeli attack will exacerbate the already fragile relations with Iran. Due to the nuclear danger and regional security concerns, Israel has taken a more combative stance against Iran. These strikes on Iran's proxy troops may compel Tehran to adopt additional military and geopolitical measures, escalating tensions between the two countries. These Israeli attacks will draw worldwide attention and possibly put pressure on Iran's west. Nuclear debates. Actors like the United States and the European Union may need to play a more active role in escalating measures. This will call into question international diplomacy's ability to resolve regional conflicts. Israel's actions have the potential to worsen already complex Middle Eastern alliances and rivalries. They may also have an impact on the Arab-Israeli rapprochement effort. For example, some Arab countries may be forced to denounce such actions, whilst others may collaborate more closely with Israel to limit Iran's regional dominance. Israel's current attacks may spark a fresh wave of hostility in relations with Iran. Iran is expected to retaliate by launching its own proxy forces or direct military operations.
This could result in increased military and diplomatic spending on both sides, heightening the prospect of a regional conflict. As a result, increasing tensions between Israel and Iran in the aftermath of these events have the potential to spark a regional and global catastrophe that must be handled with caution. Meanwhile, in the face of escalating tensions between Israel and Iran, Israelis express a wish for a resolution.
Israelis have stated in interviews that they would prefer a negotiated solution to their difficulties with Iran over military reprisals. This is done to prevent an escalation of hostilities between the two countries and throughout the region. Israelis think that a pro-peace posture is essential, particularly given the humanitarian costs of conflict and the harm that protracted instability may create. They emphasize that diplomacy and negotiation can be more effective than armed action in establishing long-term peace. This demonstrates that a part of Israeli society is fed up with the continuous military tensions and want a long-term resolution. Israeli calls for a peaceful solution have the potential to ease tensions between Israel and Iran. Political leaders' actions will influence how this plan is incorporated into government policy and implemented in practice. In this setting, this procedure is critical for regional peace and stability, as well as long-term conflict resolution between the two countries.
Oh, nothing works on this acne.
Hi! Who? I'm a licensed dermatology provider from Curate.